Appreciate your patience.
There we go. All right, I don't know that I need to put, well, let me just give an introduction. This is the Racial Equity and Policing Commission Policy and Practices Subcommittee meeting. Today is Thursday, June 10th, 2021. This meeting is scheduled at 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and several have identified a hard stop, and so we'll try and respect that. I sent out the agenda. There's not much on it. I don't know that I need to share it, but I will briefly. Can you see that now?
Yeah, we can.
There
All
it
right.
is.
Okay, so just a couple administrative items, including city council presentation, review any other questions about the recommendations. Shafin, we can update you on that in full commission meeting. And then if there's anything else final that we want to put to the final full commission meeting, put on the and to the full commission at the final meeting next week, we can discuss those, and then any other items. So we got a lot done last week. Shafin, I guess I can turn it over to any one of you guys to just give an update and overview, but wanted to get this out of the way. The city council and staff is asking that the subcommittee present the recommendations and an update to the council next week on the 15th, I believe. Is there anybody that's available and willing to do that?
Josh, unfortunately, I'll be out of town again and won't be available.
Okay.
What day is this again?
Tuesday, the 15th.
And what's the ask to just speak to the city council, the council members?
Yes. Darlene, update the city council on the subcommittee and just present the 5 recommendations. And I'll get detail. I don't know that they need them read onto the record. Probably more like an update like we did at the listening session, right? Just related to the 5.
Okay, I'm checking my calendar really quickly.
Okay, I'm verifying the date.
It's the 15th.
The 15th.
Okay, if it's the 15th and at what time?
Lauren, they have a big window, right? And so I don't know, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I don't have an exact time either.
What's the window? I get off work at 4.
I think we could probably, is it Lauren, or do they meet generally starting at 3?
Yeah, they begin at 3 and they go on through the evening. So I'd say 4's probably fine. Like you'll probably be okay at that time. But I can check while we continue.
Okay, and are they still on Zoom?
Yes, they are.
Okay, if I can do at 4:30 on Tuesday, then you could put me down for, I guess, tentative. If
Okay.
4:30 is okay, I can do it.
Okay. I will put that down and I'll double check the time while you guys move on.
Okay. And if that's okay, please send me a calendar invite. If it is not on my calendar, it does not exist.
I'll make sure they do.
Thank you.
And I'll send you another final version of the 5 recommendations, Darlene.
Okay, that would be excellent.
And from the other times we've been on the council's agenda, I believe we usually come on around 4:30. So I'm hopeful that'll work. So thank you, Darlene, for being willing to do that. All right, any thoughts on, or I guess anyone want to provide a summary of our last meeting for Shafin? I think everyone else that's on this call, Chief Doubt was there. I don't know Officer Groves if he was on the full commission meeting or not. But Steve, you had a lot to say and do usually. In fact, you made the meeting go a half hour longer. So do you want to?
I would think that would be a reason to not have me talk about it, but I understand. Are you just talking about our section?
Yeah, I think I'm very familiar with the 5 recommendations and had input and worked with us, and we did have some good discussion shopping and tidied up the recommendations. We took the budget out of the training just so as to not put limitations on it, but kind of kept the scope in it. And the full commission passed all 5 of the recommendations. So that was excellent.
Right. Congratulations on that. That's a milestone. And
Yeah.
what were they changed at all, or just what did it look like, the final 5? I mean, in general.
Yeah, I can pull it up right here, and then I'm trying to remember like the discussion.
I see Dr. Singh has joined us as well. He's connecting to audio, but he'll be with us shortly. He's still connecting.
Oh, do we have him? We have his, he can hear us? All right, good.
I think he can hear. I'm not sure if he can hear us. We can't hear him. It's just connecting the audio, but
Yeah, I do want to compliment you, Josh. The process that we use to vote, I think, is very anticlimactic, and I think it's difficult to maintain inertia because it's the an affirmative vote is silence. So if there's no opposition, we all just kind of really still and it moves through. And I think it's hard to maintain the energy and to push through a few changes on the 2 that we got passed, to get the commission support, and then get the 3 others through. It is difficult, and you were I think intentionally over animated to keep the energy going, and I think it was a great technique to keep the energy moving forward. So I just wanted to compliment you on that process.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, maybe it was a little over dramatic, but we don't often celebrate. You guys worked hard and did a lot of listening, and asked a lot of questions to get to some informed decisions on the recommendation. So that you guys did the work, and it wasn't easy. I know you're starting with 800+ page policy manual and legislation and processes, a lot, right? So anyway, I wanted to acknowledge my excitement for you guys, the work you did. So thanks, Steve.
I want to echo that too, by the way. I mean, we weren't a part of every meeting, but the work that we did witness was impressive. I was like, wow, this is great. I'm excited to see the final draft and also to see where ultimately it leads and where it goes. I mean, that's to see kind of how, with this work, the seed that we planted, what it turns into.
Yeah, and thank you, Shaf, and you and Dr. Singh were really helpful in coming in and helping to get a lot of thoughts that the subcommittee had into some recommendations. So appreciate that. So I'll just briefly peruse these for you and send you a copy, Shafin and Dr. Singh, and then wanted to have a discussion on anything else we want to talk about or would like to put on the agenda, or just update on process. You should expect an email the next day, probably tomorrow, from Coletta on the commission's next steps, what they're thinking. So of course we'll have full commission meeting next week, and then Dante and our group, we have a draft report in the works. It's been shared with Shafa and Dr. Singh, and we look to finish that by the end of the month. And so that's kind of where we are there. Also, I know Larry and the city have three or four listening sessions with specific groups set next week. And I'll be moving through those. And
Josh,
yeah, go ahead.
you get the draft done. Your goal is to get the draft done by the end of the month or get a final version done.
Sorry, what was that, Steve?
You're looking to get a draft version done by the end of the month or a final report done?
We hope it's final version. Sometimes it's out of your control, right? For review, the review process.
I'm not trying to hold you accountable to that time. I just want to make sure I understood what you were saying.
Yes, that's our goal.
And then will the commission get a look at that draft? Which to your point may delay things, but or are you looking to present a final report back to us as well?
I think that's the intent, and to talk more about it next full commission meeting. Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to put a report out from the commission that's not authorized by the commission, or you haven't seen it, had input. That's my thought.
I wasn't sure if it was a commission report or your opinion as facilitators.
Yeah, it was part of our scope, right, to provide the report. We'll probably engage core commission or commissioners before we finalize it. So any thought, Shafa and Dr. Singh, response to that, or thoughts, best practices? You guys have written many reports, and I know we've talked about our report.
Yeah, I think we should have some ideas or some conversations. I want to also have some, before I make a response to that, I think we should talk first.
Yeah.
My inclination is, of course, you want all the feedback, but I don't know. You definitely want them to have a look at it, right? So we can talk about that, because I wasn't clear about the audience.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll report on the report next Wednesday. Steve, how's that?
True to form. That's perfect.
True to form. All right.
That's perfect.
Are you growing out your mustache? It looks a little longer than
This is neglect.
neglect.
Yeah.
All right. So I just wanted to tie up the recommendations. There was some discussion shopping around, if you recall, on the body worn cameras, the reporting, and to do it quarterly, annually, or biannually. And there's the city's required in some form or fashion to provide a report quarterly, biannually, and annually. And so we tried to align with those requirements that they have on their external and internal audit reporting, and be consistent with that. And so we wrote that into the recommendation, that there'll be quarterly reports, and they'll be provided to the commission at the same time. So some felt like, and there was consensus, that let's go with quarterly if we're trying to push transparency, accountability. Yeah, might as well do it quarterly. It can always be modified. So that's where we landed on that.
I think I recall Chief Dowd saying that he was willing to have like this kind of back and forth, open door kind of policy where it's a continual feedback loop, which I think is great. So.
Yeah, exactly. And we appreciate Chief Dowd and Chief Brown and their support on that. The community-based training on the history of policing, again, just took out the budget, didn't want to put any limitations on it. That was more just to get an idea. But we kind of kept the scope, and then just made a change that it be funded and developed and implemented as soon as reasonably possible within a reasonable time. So to focus on quality and to move it along. So that was one other modification. The mental health one didn't change, and then neither did the call diversion and dispatch. from some of the edits that we talked about and had made. So that's the update on that. So again, this is your meeting and your time. You guys kind of think delivered last meeting. Is there anything that is important that you feel should be on the agenda, or a recommendation or something to put forward the full commission on Wednesday?
I don't know about that necessarily, but the one other issue in the recommendations, we talking about mayor appointing an auditor, and we wanted that to have that equity lens through the equity officer. And I think as a group, we backed away from requiring a third person to be a part of that process, understanding and empowering the mayor and to do her job or their job as it's moved to the future, with the idea that we want it to be through that equity lens would meet that. So we backed off on that.
Yeah, the city attorney or council or others brought up questions about some of that, and Steve,
Separation of powers.
and what you're saying is, yeah, our main objective was equity lens. Felt like we achieved that with collaboration with that chief equity officer.
Right.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Well, I was just going to ask a question about that, because I recall that point, which is really interesting. So where did we land on that? So you guys said that essentially, because I think the issue was, will this person that's going to be hired by the mayor be kind of reporting to the mayor? And then if the mayor changes, or when the mayor changes, what happens with the, with that responsibility? So where'd you guys land on that?
So the ordinance requires the mayor to appoint somebody to that, to hire somebody for that position. And we wanted to add additional language about how that selection process would be made. And it is currently required by ordinance for her to do that. And we wanted to ensure that that was looked at through equity, or through an equity lens. But then there was a third piece where it would also be selected by someone outside of the mayor's office would be participating. And we took that final piece out due to some of those concerns with the separation of powers. And that the council has already required the mayor to do that. So we can't add to that.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Makes sense. Mm-hmm. Got it.
Yeah, you see that? All right.
And even that's a little awkward that the person hired by the mayor will have to approve the mayor's decision. But I think the point is to ensure that that equity lens is put on that hiring. And I think we accomplished that with it.
Yeah, and I don't. Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Those are my recollections. I don't.
Yep.
That was my understanding.
Yeah, and Shaf and Dr. Singh, I think but I'm not sure. But they did hire the chief equity officer, and it's Coletta Lynch, who has been leading this effort for the city, which is good. And she was on the call. She didn't object to this, so I thought we were good. Chief Dowd, I'd like to hear from you real quick if we could, on your thoughts on the recommendations, and if you had any other questions for the subcommittee.
Yeah, I think all the recommendations are great. And, I appreciate all the input that you guys have given the department and, and the city. And I have to apologize for the chief not being here today. We had an officer involved shooting earlier. We're taking care of that. And we had one of our employees die of a health issue suddenly. So we're taking care of that as well. But as for the recommendations, I think they look great.
Thank you. I know one of our goals from the beginning identified we wanted the subcommittee and commission wanted them to be feasible, sustainable, and viable. And I think, and hopefully they will be from your involvement and work with the subcommittee. So thank you. Anything else from commission members on those recommendations or anything moving forward for the full commission meeting next week? Dr. Singh.
You know, I'm going to ask a question. Wow, this is, I'm worried now. Josh, how many members are we missing from the commission?
From the subcommittee right now?
Mhm.
We have Carol, Commissioner Shiplet, she's excused. She had a medical procedure. MJ.
From-
Thank you.
Who am I missing?
Well, we plan to see everybody next week, right? Do we have a full commission next week?
Yep. Commissioner Bonuri as well. So more than half, yeah, the subcommittee. So, yeah, thank you for coming on. So,
You know, Josh, on the meeting next week, will we be talking about the future of this commission at that meeting? Do you know if that's an agenda item?
yes, it is. In fact, I know that the core commission had an agenda setting meeting this afternoon that I wasn't a part of, but I did get briefed on it. And there will be an email going out again tomorrow, I think, about that, and then further discussion at the full commission meeting.
And I think that we had asked for some support from the city on what some possible options are for the talk of the survey. Is that still in the works, or was that just for the core?
Some possible options for what?
The future of this commission, like, so
Yes.
having everything to be completely wide open, felt like it was too broad for us to give some good recommendations about how we'll work with the city in the future. So I was looking possibly for some ideas from their side on what's possible, and then we could contribute to that. So, I understood there was going to be a survey. Does anybody else recall that? I think Coletta was talking about that.
I do remember that. I'll make a note of that and follow up. Because really the input you've provided is, you know, we just asked your opinion on the frequency, right? If you want to be involved, how often, what should change, and if it should have facilitators. Pretty limited.
And the size.
Yeah.
To that point, I want to add or ask. So you guys have made these recommendations, they've been accepted. You know, whose responsibility is it to kind of oversee the, you know, kind of like to kind of check in on it, make sure they're moving forward? You guys just passed it. Your job here was to think through this, make recommendations, and then just kind of say, okay, you know, so long, or is there going to be a mechanism to check up on that and see how things are going? And I guess that's an extension of the question that Commissioner Andrew Reardon brought up about what the life is, potential life is of this commission moving forward.
Yeah, and I think part of the answer is our job to make recommendations to the mayor and the council, and then they'll accept them to the degree that they will. That's recommendations versus them actually setting the policy. They've been very open. And then I think we also discussed with the mayor's chief of staff that and I felt like this was a critical connection, but that chief equity officer and her team also involved in the implementation, ensuring that, again, the equity lens is there, because if we're asking an institution that has challenges implementing things that work for everybody, we don't just want to leave it to them to do it. And I don't mean any disrespect by that, but we would just be perpetuating some of those same issues. So at the very least, that equity department in the mayor's portfolio should be or will be involved in the actual implementation of these policies. We've given some ideas, but as we all know, devil's in the details, right? So it still has to be put input with that fidelity to be effective, and that's a good way to have somebody there full time.
Very responsible. I would just suggest this, and I mean, not knowing exactly where it may land, but there should be. I would hope that there's some kind of, you can close the loop. Like you guys have made a lot of recommendations, at least to check in on where are they at with, kind of, hey, can you update the commission or the former commissioner of the city or whoever, the city council, on where the progress has been made, the progress where the gaps have been, just so that you guys can see, or someone, so there's some accountability. Because oftentimes what happens is a lot of planning goes on, and then there's a lot of recommendations made, and they sound good, but then there's like a kind of a black hole, and there's nothing. It's like just bureaucracy. It's how it works, and then we don't know. No one knows, well, what happened to that? Like, did we ever implement any of those ideas? To what degree did we implement them, or to what level of success? Because you can also learn from that. Like, hey, maybe we didn't, but maybe we should. And maybe there's a reason why we didn't, or maybe there's a reason why we shouldn't, or we should adjust it. But maybe there's a feedback loop mechanism that closes out, that really looks at the reporting or the recommendation and closes the gap on that for you guys or for the city.
I totally agree with that. And I think I think what you're recommending, restate what I think you said, that should be something that the future commission has in mind, because one thing in particular in I'm gonna say almost half our recommendations, it's implement this and let's see where we are, and then adjust and continue, right? So by their nature, it requires that follow-up, so we can tweak them or augment them, or in some cases go to next steps. Yeah,
I think Commissioner Johnson, you want to say something?
I did. I just wanted to say that Shafin made a good point, and so did Steve. And also, like when Chief Brown was saying, "Hey, we can make some tweaks along the way, and update, the progress in the policy or whatever." We need to have some accountability on that. If that doesn't go the way we think it's going to go, and then we do need to make changes on the fly in real time, who's going to be accountable for that? And how are we going to have a voice to make sure that those changes get made or we're updated
Exactly.
on the progress, or if that's working, what we put in place, if that's working. So Steve and Chopin, excellent job.
I'm with you on that too, and I think Shafin, you raised a very good point. The question is, should there be, if you move forward, should there be a responsibility of the commission to do a check-in? That's one way, right? Who has the onus? Who has the burden of doing the check-in? Is it the commissioner's responsibility to do the check-in, or is it the responsibility of the city to give you the check-in of the department to do the check-in with you? And I think we have to have clarity on that. And one, who has a responsibility? And two, what is the timing? I think you have to put something on the calendar, monthly, bi-weekly, 3 months. And third, I think we can create some kind of, even very simple. Nowadays, I'm a big fan of Google Documents. Even if the check-in doesn't have to be in person, it can be electronic. So somebody goes from the department and puts in an entry. Okay, in a month, we did this, and this is an update for you, the commissioners. And commissioners can see that document, and they don't have to worry about making a phone call and whatnot. Those are some ideas that
That's a good point, Dr. Singh. And I was thinking along those lines, since the commission intent has been to be open, transparent, accountable, and it has its web page. I'm almost wondering if there could be a recommendation tracker on the page, right? Status, like each recommendation. And then, I don't know if build in a timeline or changes, updates, or expectations. It's almost like a living page, but unfortunately our contract ends on the 30th. You guys continue, but this phase ends. So these are excellent questions. My keyboard's loud. You probably heard me typing them, but they, yeah, very important for next meeting to have these questions asked, answered, and what I'm hearing from you guys. Don't
Does-
end on loose ends.
Josh, does the commission continues the work?
Yes,
So contract ends for us, but not the commission, right?
right.
And I think those are some of the questions about what will the commission look like in its next iteration, right? I think we're talking about this 1-year phase. And so I think that these are important questions to leave for whoever is still here, who's a part of that commission, about what some of our intentions were and what the follow-up is. And I think part of the question you asked, I think it's kind of all the above. So one, there are areas where we do require reports, in this case, a quarterly basis. Next, one of the recommendations for that implicit bias, it's what do we do with that data, right? So that has to have follow-up. So but we won't know until we get it. Then, and then I do think that there's another piece to keep track of, which is, are we actually getting things set up? Have we hired trainers for the department, and do we have a schedule to get them in place? And then in a year, did we actually get everyone through the training? And there are a few areas in there that we need to catch. And I'm wondering, in the equity director's portfolio, there's several employees, and I believe that a portion of one of those employees will be to support this commission. That might be a good place to capture those, put those lists and to put that information. So maybe we can bring that up at the next meeting, Josh, who can do that, because there may already be a paid employee who is supporting us, and that can be one of the things that we do.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. Like, yeah, what's the intent of the city? What do they have a plan? What are they thinking of? What's the chief equity officer's role, responsibility in relation to the commission? Then she's in the mayor's office. They're a counterpart on the council side of council staff, or does she? I mean, that's important. Like, what's that role? That might be helpful, right?
Yeah, and I want to be thoughtful about overburdening city employees with other duties as assigned. Often those are the ones that get built up, and then you're always trying to tread water to get all your assignments done. It's so easy to add. That's one reason I'm kind of excited about those new positions in the mayor's office. We could get to them early and fill them with these responsibilities before their plate is entirely full.
Got it. Excellent questions. Other considerations as this phase is winding down, and
Guys, finish quickly.
yeah. Who was that?
I have a question. And I've asked this before, Josh, is there a way we can do in-person meeting now that the rules are getting relaxed around the nation before 30th, if possible? Especially for people who live in the state, right? I'm not saying you have to fly people in from outside, but people who are in the city or in the state.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I think it'd be very valuable. I know last time Siobhan checked in, city wasn't quite there, but yeah, we can ask it again. Where are you seeing the most value or benefit Or
So,
am I
yeah,
out
so,
there?
so I'm thinking we need a whiteboard, we need people in the room, and we need to go through, this is what we discussed. This is what the future looks like. What are we missing, right? And through that joint exercise, there could be some further trust building, which I think will be essential to continue this amazing work. A lot of thought, time, effort has gone into this. And I can see the commitments on the face of commissioners, at least the two I see, that they are committed, that there is, and I also see some tension. I notice some, okay, where are we going after this, right? And I think if we put people in the same room, I mean, one of the reasons why people are missing today, forgive me for saying this, one of the reasons might be that we are not having this in person, that there is not that excitement anymore. Okay, let's get together and let's get this done. The importance of the topic has not gone down, but our comfort level, our tiredness with Zoom may be going up.
Yeah, that's good. What do you guys think as commissioners?
Um, I think that while I agree with some of what you said regarding the in-person meeting, I think that if we had had an in-person meeting, many people would have dropped off because of just, I mean, we live in Utah and the political landscape is what it is. And we have a lot of vaccine hesitancy here. And we have some older people that are part of the commission. And there's just no way that there's a comfort level of meeting in person and risking one's health. I myself have an autoimmune um, issue. So I'm like right now I'm good. You know, I'm fully vaccinated. I can, you know, I'm pretty comfortable. But at the same time, if I was in a space with a whole bunch of people, especially early on, I don't know if I would have done it. But at the same time, very committed to what we're doing, very committed to the work that we're doing, and that commitment will remain whether we're in person or not.
Mhm.
And I don't know how other people feel about this. I'm comfortable as long as I know that other people in the room cares about my health, care about their health as much as my health, as much as their health. And I haven't asked anyone that's part of this commission how they feel about the vaccine and that other, I have no idea, none of my business. I haven't asked. But if we were going to meet in a room, I would want to know if I'm in a room with a bunch of people that has exposure, because that puts my health at risk. That makes
Good
sense?
points. Good points. No, thank you, Commissioner Darlene. I appreciate your comments. And this just tells you how smart I am, that I don't even think all the possible considerations before making a suggestion. But I do think that my point was for future. And that's why I said if people are vaccinated and feel comfortable, if not vaccinated, either ways, then in future, is there a possibility to meet? Not in the past. I think what happened over the Zoom meetings has been terrific. If nothing short of a miracle by everyone's commitment. But that was like I'm thinking 4, 7, 8, 10 weeks in future. Is there a possibility?
Yeah, thanks, Simran. I know we pushed for it, at least to explore the opportunity to do that before this ended, and based on the city's policies and where they were at the time, a few weeks ago, they weren't yet open to having public meetings. In the future, I think it should certainly be considered and even provide a hybrid option, right? On-site and online if there are people that just feel more comfortable. But yeah, I'm really, yeah, I wish we could have been together in person.
I think one reason, Josh, I'm saying it, I just love to hug people. So if, you know, Shafan and Josh, I'll give you a hug. And
Absolutely.
I saw Commissioner Johnson unmute. I don't know if you want to say something, Shafan, and then I'm going to mute myself.
I'm all for it, Dr. Singh. I think it's a good idea, and I like to be in person. You can read the room, and you can read the body language, and the work we've done is incredible on Zoom, but I'm kind of burnt out on Zoom. I'm more of a people person, so I'll agree to show up anytime, anywhere.
Same here. I'll fly down
Yeah.
to help you guys. This is amazing. I absolutely agree with what you said.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love for Dr. Singh and for Sharfin to fly down and be live and in person. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Shafan, you can take me in your plane, buddy, so I'll be fine.
Oh, absolutely on its way. But I by the way, I'd love the personal connection. I'd love to meet all of you in person. I also respect and understand what Commissioner McDonald was referring to. I totally get that. I want to respect everybody's concerns and safety. And I like the idea, Josh, of maybe even doing some kind of a hybrid thing or something where we can do something like that. I know some schools are doing that now too. So.
Yeah, and as we're talking about this, I know that everyone's busy traveling, the timing, but perhaps we send an email out that the subcommittee is giving a report to the council on the 15th, and Darlene can be the spokesperson, but anyone on the subcommittee that should attend. I think there's power in that, and a message of anyone that can go, be there. I mean, it's 10 minutes. I know the time of the day is not great, or maybe there's a virtual option where Darlene, well, you'll be there virtually, right, Commissioner McDonald? And I think Lauren said it is a virtual meeting, but
Yes. I mean, I could be there virtually, and I don't mind showing up to places as long as I know that it's not like super duper crazy, and and then, that's I'm not gonna go. There's some very brave people out there. I'm personally not going into a stadium. I mean, that's just me. But I don't mind being in a small group. I don't mind me being with other people who are vaccinated. I don't mind being outside, that sort of thing. I mean, that's my comfort zone. But and but I'm good to travel anywhere. I'm ready for a party here now, anywhere. I'm ready.
all right, good. Lauren, when you calendar that, can you just send it to the full subcommittee, even Chaffin and Dr. Singh? If there's a 10-minute window that we can get on to just support. I think that'd be powerful. I don't know what you guys think, but that was just a thought I had as we're talking about the value of unity and being together.
It sounds like they're going to send an invite to the full commission. So everyone should get an invite, and then they'll kind of, I think, schedule from there. But it's all on Zoom.
Right.
So there's no in person for city council yet.
Will we as facilitators and our team, Dr. Singh and Chaffin, be on that as well?
I'll let them know that you need to be, yeah.
All right. Sorry, Steve, you were unmuted, I think, John.
Yeah, if that's all right. I've probably used up all my time already, but
No, you
know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use some of the time the other commissioners would have used if they've been able to attend the meeting. So,
all right, go ahead.
I have attended those meetings, the presentations at the council, and they generously take time to acknowledge all the commissioners in attendance. So they definitely pay attention to the fact that we're there and appreciate that. And I do think it's good to go support our presenters. And Darlene, thank you for taking that on. I've been vaccinated, so I would love to meet and hug all of you. Be willing to be comfortable with that. But going back to why there's not as many people in attendance, I don't know if it's the weather, that we're winding down, time of year, and not to speak for other people, but I wondered if part of it is because it's uncertain what's happening next, and I think in that uncertainty, it impacts motivation, and also this subcommittee in particular, we got all of our recommendations pushed through. We're probably not going to start new recommendations in the 1 or 2 weeks that we have left. So that may reduce the interest or the urgency to be present. But I think, Josh, and I'd be willing to talk to the some of the other court commissioners, but also you, Darlene, as a court commissioner. I think we have to get settled where we're going in the future. I know that is underway, and I think that when the time is right, when we're going to have a serious conversation about it, we really need to promote that meeting heavily to get as many commissioners there as possible and understand the importance of that. Because if it's just on the agenda for some consideration, but we're not actually going to take any action or it's not going to move forward, I don't know if that would motivate people to get on. So I think when we start to have some options and we're going to tighten that up, and we're going to have some serious discussions about the future, I think we should promote that heavily and get as many commissioners there as we can, because that is a critical phase. And as a longtime government employee, I know the pattern of many government employees of waiting for the labor of the month to move on. And it's critical that we get this commission rooted, so it's certain that we're going to be here, one, for the sake of the commissioners, two, for so that the department, and I think we have Tim and Nate on now, the department's been amazingly supportive of this, but a lot of officers have seen reform efforts come and go over the course of their career. We have to show that we're serious about it by getting that locked in. And it's an important message to our community that there are those who would have wanted us to go further and maybe be, where it is, but give more powerful recommendations. I think we're doing great. I think, somewhat glacial policy change is some of the best way to do it. But sooner the better. We need to let the commissioners know some iteration will be here, the officers know, and the community to know. And then I think we can rekindle some of that energy.
Those are all good points, and I harken back to one of the first subcommittee meetings Chaffin and Subcommittee got on, and they asked some excellent questions and really dug deep. And I think one of the themes they pulled out was there was uncertainty about why am I here? What am I being asked to do? What are the expectations? What's the deliverable, right? Then kind of organized us to get to somewhere. That's kind of where it seems you feel we are now, right? And if it's changed, what does that look like? Chaffin, Subcommittee, was that a theme kind of, do you remember that and kind of digging into it and identifying that?
Absolutely. Yeah, your points are very salient. Absolutely, totally. Yeah, that's how we started. And I mean, it's great to see kind of where we've come from there. But you're right. I mean, and you just talk about the tendencies of government. I'm also, I'm very familiar with government bureaucracy and how people wait for things to transition. And if you don't get a real good footing, it can just, just as easily just kind of, and there's a lot of well-intended folks. So I think it's incumbent upon us to ask the right questions and create the processes that are sticky enough that keep us there and create the kind of change that we hope to see. So, absolutely.
All right, great, excellent. I've taken a bunch of notes. I'm going to forward them on to Coletta, Dante, Siobhan, and as we prepare for next Wednesday and moving forward. Chaffin, Dr. Singh, Siobhan and I will follow up. I hope we can have a discussion before Wednesday or some exchange online.
Definitely.
Good. All right. Anything else? Commissioner Johnson's going to drop off in 2 minutes, and Chaffin, I know Dr. Singh always has people knocking on his door or people waiting in a conference center for him to walk out from behind the curtain. So anything else from the group?
Good discussion today. This was a valuable meeting, and I think it primes the conversation for sure. I think that's going to be important. And Darlene, thank you for being the presenter, and I'll be at the meeting to support you.
And then to piggyback off that, they basically told me that everyone's going to get a WebEx connection invitation the morning of the meeting on Tuesday. So Dr. Singh and Shopin, if you could just send me your emails in the chat, I'll add you to that. And then Commissioner McDonald, you'll get a private invitation since you'll be speaking. So they'll send everyone the WebEx connection the morning of, but except Commissioner McDonald, who will get it ahead of time.
Excellent. Thank you, Lauren. And thank you, Darlene. Thank you, Nate Groves. I don't know that I called you out earlier, but Commissioner Andrew Worden did, and appreciate your involvement too. So before we sign off, can you put your emails? Oh, I guess you direct message Shafin, Dr. Singh to Lauren, or do you want me to send them I can make sure she has your contact info.
Yeah, great. I put it in the chat, but yeah, please, that's great. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. I got to go, but it's my pleasure, and honor. So thank you guys, and I'll see you again next week. I'm going to try to make that attend that event as well to support you, Commissioner McDonald. Okay, and cheer you on. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Good night.